Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. As we allow ourselves another opportunity to pause, to reflect, to stay curious, to connect, we come to this circle as we continue to walk with our shadow, the shadows of things that we have hidden, the shadow that we are afraid of, and the shadows that we have become good friends with. These circles are opportunities to welcome all of yourself in. These indigenous teachings are a way of living. And they might be a way that helps you or not. There are many ways, and there isn't just one indigenous way of living in this world, or one indigenous philosophy. Instead, there is a belief in multitudes. And so we enter into the circle with that. All our parts, all our possibilities, all the different paths before us and behind us, and the one that we are on now. And recognizing that this is a time together to be as present as possible, let us invite 3 parts of ourselves to become present. There are many more, but we start with these 3 because they are the central parts of our beingness, one might say. And so let us do a simple Eek breath practice. There are many more, but this simple one can be done at any time, any place, and it's literally about that, bringing you to this moment, to this possibility of this moment, and calling upon our 3 intelligences, not for them to be the same, but for them to step into their brilliance and be observed and welcomed by the other parts of yourself. This isn't a call for sameness and monotony, or thinking that neutrality is a lack of. Instead, when we are calling and inviting our parts, it's for them to be uniquely themselves. And so let us call upon our body and our mind and our essence in these 3 breaths. First breath in and out through that nose, calling upon the uniqueness and the intelligence of our body into this time and into this place. In and out through the nose, calling upon the uniqueness, the intelligence of our essence into this time and place. In and out through the nose, calling upon the uniqueness and the intelligence of our mind into this time and place. And as you're allowing that to settle, be aware if you've heard these 3 breaths being done in a different order, that is okay. There's no one way. And today we are tuning into uniqueness, not as a means of separateness, but a means and a possibility to have a concept of togetherness be a little bit different than the one that most of Western society conditions people to be in. And so let us approach the circle in the directions that hold multitudes. We call upon each one at a time, recognizing their difference and their ability to hold a different part of the circle based on their experience and orientation to circleness. And so we call upon the east, the south, the west, the north. And as we come back to the east and ask to enter into the circle with our three parts to the best of our ability as we are showing up now, we are recognizing the potential of all. And that potential of all is not about sameness. And this is what this podcast is about today. I find it curious that in conversations we are always trying to find common ground to relate. Or finding out that many times for people to understand another being's even value or worth, they must have an interaction instead of just allowing a way of being, whether it is how you walk with your sexuality, how you walk with your ethnicity, how you walk with all the different parts of yourself, your body, your mind, your essence, your position in society, how you relate. And unless it's familiar, people don't want to interact. And they don't want to make space for it unless there is common ground. I find this absurd. I find that the fear of something that is not familiar traps people into a way of being that unless you have access to meet everyone in the world, if you don't have that, well, then what? If your doorway to mercy, grace, and compassion and allowing for differenceness involves one-to-one connection, I find that a bit isolating. Not only do I find it isolating and absurd, and I say absurd in the sense of the absurdity of something, the fanatical or the beyond of something. It seems so beyond for me to not just value someone based on their beingness, whether I know they exist in the world or not. Why do I need to experience something to make space for it? That is a colonizer mindset. Sameness is a colonizer mindset. Finding common ground comes also from a colonizer mindset. Now you might say like, okay, Marisa, you've gone a little too far with this. We try to find common ground to relate. But who said we had to be relatable to relate? I had what I'm now discovering the luxury of growing up with immigrants and being an immigrant myself. The luxury of not belonging and the luxury of many ways, many languages, many dishes and smells and foods surrounding my early years of my life. Sameness never was brought to our attention in the way that it didn't hold vast diversity. Common ground wasn't something that was tried to discover to relate and be okay. Actually, it was the opposite. We sought our differences to learn from each other, to enrich each other's life. Yet we're so afraid of differences that society has created this sameness as akin to oneness. We are one body, each one playing their parts. Yet this is not true. This is not how humans relate. They still think that the eye is better than the toe, one might say, as an analogy to the mythos of these parables. And it's because of that value concept of colonization and transactional relationships that are so much a part of the culture of the United States that everything is run through that. And so, if you are transactional in your relationships, then of course you want to be relatable, because you need these transactions to happen as quickly as possible, because we've created a society based on a speed that humans can no longer keep up with. So if I find common ground and am relatable, I can build something quicker to try to get ahead of the speed of the society that I am bound to live in, one might say. And when I'm using the I, it's the proverbial I, but I am not saying that everyone relates that way. We all probably know the idea, or at least the words exposure therapy. The need to be exposed to something. The need for that to be a part of a therapy of getting over something. It is usually used to treat anxiety disorders. And in doing so, you target a patient's anxiety source or its context, according to Wikipedia, without the intention to cause any danger. And for some reason, I find an interesting connection between a lot of people's mentalities these days of I must experience it to value it, to not be afraid of it. if we are honest with the roots of anthropology being created to create otherness, to study the savage, to prove that Europeans were far, far from the savage, far more superior. Than the study of humans or their humanity has always had difference or differenceness as part of relating one and the other. So maybe this is why we don't want to accept differences, because we prove that we need them to become superior. And we think that only by exposure therapy or living among the savages means that we can find their humanity. We can find that they are not really that different from the rest of cultured society. And I see this mindset prevalent now. It has never left us. It might never leave society because it might be one of its building blocks. And so we have to be aware of that when we are trying to build something else. Have you checked your foundation of being? Your foundation of relationship? What are the stories, the equations, the ways that have been built into your programming, into your foundation that you relate? And if you do not face these shadows, these whispered things, then even when you are trying to change and build something new, you will still build on an old foundation. And then your remodel of your life will still hold and be held up by colonized mentalities and ways of being, including value and sameness, and an absurdity that you must experience another being to give it value, instead of accepting that all possibilities of beings can exist and all have value in their diversity, the unexplored, the unimagined. Yet humans think that they create or just through discovery. And even now, people are quote unquote discovering things that have been known for other societies forever. I remember watching a TikTok where this lady was saying how she had just discovered a flat tortilla. And all the many of the Mexican people on TikTok, Mexican, indigenous, it gets much more complicated than that, was like, that's a tostada. What do you think you discovered this? Or when people in LA started calling aguas frescas spa water and discovering it. White people, white society continues to try to discover and to claim things and ways of being and give value based on relating and we hold our breath waiting for our value to be deemed. We wait hoping to be discovered because we know the anger of white society can be lethal. There are so many worlds outside of the dominant culture. Yet if you come from it, the only way you know how to relate is in a dominant way. And this is one of the foundational things that must shift for any real breakthroughs to be accomplished. I see this when people from dominant society come into indigenous circles. They have that value set of dominance, of definition, of defining, which can include an erasure as part of sameness to allow indigenous people to feel like they are welcome. And I'm like, this is my circle. I do not need to be valued by you to know my value. Yet so many people think that extending this idea of sameness to me or to people like me is a way of creating a bridge. But I was born, I was raised with the richness, the vibrancy of differentness, the richness and the vibrancy of things that I didn't understand or languages I didn't understand, and I found joy in that, not fear. I do not need your sameness. I do not need your value system. And I know that I speak for many when I say this. Because when I'm in indigenous circles or when I'm in circles from other people of other nations of other world, our sameness is our uniqueness. And we speak this way. And we wonder why white society has such struggle accepting that they will never understand our ways because our ways are not coming from dominant culture. And yet, there is an understanding to continue to build bridges. Bridges into what we would say is the unknown. The landscape of sameness or commonality. And so we embark, even having visual cues of how different we are, for people to understand, to exotify, to give honor and respect. It's as if we are not as exotic, then we fall into a commonality and the need to be defined in a space. And either position, inside or outside the circle of dominance, is still not safe. I want to just take a moment as we just take 3 breaths again and reset. And reset, rethink, reimagine, and ask your body, and ask your essence, and ask your mind that even at this level of yourself, are you allowing for difference? Or are you expecting even yourself to be subjugated to the normative of sameness? And if that's the case, then that subjugation, of course, will continue outside of yourself towards others. We cannot control other people, but what we can be aware of is our foundational ways of being, our habits, that which we have taken for granted, including interactions. And stay curious and courageous. And examine, are we still looking for value within ourselves as this same monosyllable tone beingness? Or can we are all the same actually mean we can be color and sound and vibrancy and languages? So many languages, so many traditions, that there is no time to value or discover all of them. But we can just let them exist in the beyond of our knowing and still give those beings, those creatures, grace, mercy, and compassion. Not because we understand or find commonality, but because we expand the potential of our interpretation to hold the unknown, to hold the undiscovered, not to know it and discover it and define it and value it, but because then we allow ourselves the possibility to be unknown and undefined. And yet we're so afraid to do that because if we are defined, then we are safe and we have value and then we are loved. Can we allow? Can we unlock? Can we release? Can we free, truly free all that which we have enslaved within us and in others by living true aloha, grace, honor, respect, mercy, compassion for all the Aina, all beings, including humans. Not because you vacationed there or discovered it for your own, but because it exists. My prayer for this world and for humans is that one day we might not be afraid to be unknown. Shade. With that, we close this circle, leaving you to your own interpretation of what you need after this as a meditation. So let us thank the East, the South, the West, and the North. To all my teachers, to all my people, and teachers from so many different traditions and backgrounds. Many approaching me to hold what I did not know, not to make it the same as another tradition, but to weave and be held in the uniqueness of the unknown. With that, we release the circle as we come back to our days, our breath, our circles. And I hope the rest of this day allows you the exploration of your spaciousness. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, we'd love to find more people to support it, to keep it going. Please find a way to be a patron of this podcast. Be it small or large, any level of patronage is welcomed and honored. And I hope to see you in this circle, in a live circle soon, or in one of my upcoming online classes, including some programs that Angel Deer and myself are coming up with as we launch, or I should say relaunch, Rockstar School. Stay tuned for more info on that. And if you're in the area, I hope to see you soon. Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.